Hi friends, this is Professor Vinod D'Souza, Associate Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, AJ Institute of Engineering and Technology, Mangalore. Today we will discuss about the vibration methods. In the previous class, we have discussed two methods of vibrations and they are blasting techniques and dynamic compaction. We have seen detail what you mean by blasting techniques, how the blasting is done in case of non-cohesive soils. Also, we have discussed in detail about the dynamic compaction, how it is done, and what are the advantages of this method. Today, we'll try to cover the remaining methods of vibrations. They are vibratory probe, vibro compaction, vibro flotation technique, stone columns, and displacement plies. Let us begin the discussion with the topic called as vibratory probe. This is the most widely used technique for deep compaction of cohesionless soil. The process consists of penetrating the soil with a horizontal vibrating probe and simultaneously saturating and vibrating the soil as the probe is extracted. Here, vibration is done as the probe goes inside the soil. Along with the vibrations, the soil particles get displaced and they get compacted. Vibratory probe is also called as Terra probe, which consists of a vibro driver which is similar to vibratory pile driving coupled to an open-ended steel tubular probe of 760 mm diameter and 16 meter length. This steel probe is open in both the ends, which is having a diameter of 760 mm, which will be of 16 meter length, so that we can vibrate the soil for a depth of 16 meters. Vibro driver activates the probe to vibrate in the vertical direction and imparts a vertical impulse, normally at 15 Hz with 10 to 25 millimeter amplitude. So this works with a power of 15 Hz with 10 to 25 mm amplitude. This vibration enables the vertical pipe to penetrate the loose materials. Because of these vibrations, this pipe or tubular probe penetrates inside the loose material up to the required depth. The probe is synced to a desired depth and held there for 30 to 60 seconds before extractions. In that position, still it keeps on vibrating so that this vibrates the surrounding soil and the densification will be carried out. As it vibrates, the cohesionless soil particles gets contact to each other and they gets densified. A spacing of 1 to 3 meter is generally adopted. Again, the spacing depends on the type of soil, the depth of densification required to be done. Generally saying a spacing of 1 to 3 meter is generally adopted, and while adopting the spacing, a square pattern should be followed so that each corners of that square should be vibrated first, and then the center of the square should be vibrated so that it gives the increased densification instead of adopting a reduced spacing, which will reduce the number of holes and the work will be done quickly. In each insertion of the probe densifies a cylinder of soil of 1 meter diameter and about 1 meter deeper than the probe location. Since we are driving the probe inside the soil, it densifies a diameter of 1 meter surrounding that probe and 1 meter deeper than the bottom of the probe. This much portion of the soil gets densified. Effective treatment has been accomplished between depth of 4 meter below the ground surface and up to a depth of 20 meter. In this method, we can densify the soil which will be below 4 meter up to 20 meter below the ground level. The operation is very efficient when the groundwater is 2 to 3 meter of the surface. Sometimes a water jet may be used to help easy penetration of the probe for sites where the water table is deep, but the operation of jet has to be stopped during withdrawal. Since the water table will be at much deeper depths, the top portion of the soil is slightly hard to penetrate. In that case, the probe has to drive the probe easily inside the ground. A water jet is also used so that the probe goes easily inside the soil and it penetrates or it vibrates the soil. But the thing should be noted is while withdrawing the probe, the water jet has to be stopped. Otherwise, the entire work will be of no use. Saturated soil conditions are necessary and underlying soft clay layers may damp vibrations, thereby hampering the densification process. For this process, it is must that soil should be saturated. Otherwise, for dry soil, this process will not give good results. Also, we should see that there won't be any soft clay layers at the bottom. If the presence, they will hamper the densification process. In order to evaluate the effectiveness of this technique and to decide a proper spacing, test selections of the order of 10 to 20 meter may be utilized. Initially, before going to the test, testing should be done as a trial and later the spacing should be decided. The advantage of this technique is the backfilling of the soil is not required in this test. Hence, this method proves out to be slightly cheaper and it gives more densification. This technique is preferred for densifying offshore locations. That means inside the water to densify the soil. This method will be a better one because here we are not going to replace the soil or we are not going to create the holes inside the soil. As the probe goes inside the soil, vibrations will be done and the soil gets densified. That's why this technique better is preferred on offshore locations. Compared to vibropropagation, this technique needs a more closely spaced penetration to improve a given area uniformly, as only a lesser lateral soil zone is improved by these techniques. The vibropropagation technique, which we are going to discuss in the next topic, where the spacing should be slightly more, whereas here vibratory probe the spacing required should be slightly less because it vibrates only a smaller area, 1 meter radius, 1 meter diameter from the probe. The teleprobe technique is considerably faster than the vibropropagation techniques. Although both the methods give a fairly good results, the vibropropagation method will achieve somewhat higher relative densities. So this is the discussion about the vibratory probe. Vibratory probe is a ground improvement technique that densifies clean cohesionless granular soil with a downhole vibrator. The common uses of this techniques are: it reduces the foundation settlement, it increases the bearing capacity of the soil, and we know that when the bearing capacity of the soil is high, we require smaller footing sizes. It increases the stiffness of the soil. It increases the shearing strength of the soil because since the vibrations will be done below the ground level, the soil particles will come to closer to each other and the shearing strength will increase. It reduces the permeability of the soil. As the particles are closer to each other, the voids will be reduced and hence this will reduces the permeability of the soil. It mitigates the potential of for liquefaction and it provides slope stabilizations. Next, we'll discuss the topic called as vibratory compactors. Vibratory compactors are nothing but vibratory rollers. They are the rollers which usually we see during construction of pavements or during construction of subgrades. They run over the road and they'll vibrate the soil near the ground surface. Since this technique vibrates only a depth of 2 meter below the ground surface, these methods are well suited for the pavement constructions. These compactors are available as vibrating drum, vibrating pneumatic tire, and vibrating plate equipments. These types of compactors are available. They are operated with a frequency range between 1600 and 2500 rpm, which is within the natural frequency range of most of the soils, which is a very important point to be noted. We know that the natural frequency range of the soil, most of the soil lies between 1600 to 2500 rpm. That's why these vibratory compactors are also designed with a frequency of 1600 to 2500 rpm so that it matches with the frequency of soil. Compacting at natural frequency gives the maximum effect because of high amplitude, resulting in a more denser arrangement. If we go beyond the frequency than the natural frequency of the soil, we won't get much results. The soil cannot be densified. That's why the frequency range is kept within the limits of the natural frequency of the soil. Good results are achieved when the compactor travels at a slow speed of 3 to 6 km per hour. This is one of the important points to be noted. As the speed is reduced, as the vibrators go very slowly over the pavement, definitely we can achieve the good results. That's why a speed limit of 3 to 6 km per hour is restricted in such case of compactors. Smooth drum and rubber tired vibratory compactors have proven very effective in compacting cohesionless deposits of limited thickness, that is 2 to 3 meter, or where cohesionless fills are placed. That's why, as I've told, this method is suitable for a depth of only 2 to 3 meters below the ground level. The vibratory plate compactors generally have a limited depth of effectiveness. Heaviest vibratory roller can densify above 2 meter in depth. Hence, in order to densify the soil deeper inside the ground level, we have to go for some other techniques. But like dynamic compaction or blasting techniques, where the blastings or compaction will be done much deeper inside the ground level, during that time there will be a displacement of soil at the ground level. There, these vibrators compactors are adopted so that the top surface will be even and will get the good compaction. Soil near to the ground surface will have low density because of over vibration and lack of confinements. You can see the figure of vibratory compactors where you have a vibrating drum at the front, and you can see how it vibrates the soil with the overlapping in each and every layer. In order to achieve the best results, it is essential that lift thickness, roller type, and soil type should be matched. That's why before adopting these techniques, you have to see what type of soil is available in the ground, whether it is purely cohesionless soil or there is a mixture of cohesive and cohesionless soil, and based on that we can decide what type of roller should be adopted and what will be the lift thickness in such cases. If you go for high lift thickness, which will yield loose density layers, and if you go for low lift thickness, causes waste of energy through repeated over compaction of near surface layers. That's why it is essential that initially itself will finalize what should be the lift thickness required for such type of soil. Relative density as high as 85 to 90% and a lateral earth pressure coefficient of 1 or more can be achieved if the system is matched properly. This is the advantage of this type of compactors. See the operation of a vibratory compactor, how it densifies the soil. Here there is a vibrating drum in the front, and it moves with a slow speed around 3 to 6 km per hour, so that it densifies the soil which will be below the ground levels. You can see the effect how the soil gets densified when the vibratory rolls are successfully adopted in construction of the pavements. So as we discussed earlier, we have to see how many number of passes and what should be the lift thickness required. All these are based on type of soil available in the field. The next method which we need to discuss is called as vibro displacement compaction. As the name itself tells, this method is vibration, and along with this vibration the soil gets displaced, and later the hole should be filled with a good material. That's why it is called as vibro displacement compaction. The techniques in this group are similar to those described in the vibro compaction techniques, except that the vibrations are supplemented by active displacement of soil and by backfilling the zone from which the soil has been displaced. In the previous topic of vibro compaction, we have seen that vibrations will be done and the backfilling is not required in those methods, whereas here vibro displacement compaction means vibrations will be done, and because of these vibrations there will be a displacement, and these displacements should be filled with a new material so that the soil gets densified. The method called a stone column, where a hole is created by inserting a stone column and later that hole is filled with the soil. This method to refer to as vibro displacement method. While vibro displacement is a method to improve the density of cohesionless granular soil, vibro replacement is used to improve the cohesive soil with deep vibratory methods. In case of deep vibration required in cohesive soils, this method preferably it is used, and there it is called as vibro replacement method, because there will be a displacement of soil and this displacement should be filled with a new soil. Whereas in case of non-cohesive soil, it's not possible to create a displacement, because as you vibrate, the soil gets rearranged. That's how it gets densified. Whereas in cohesive soils, the soil goes away from each other, whereas soil comes closer to each other, and there will be a gap created between the particles which should be filled by the new soil. Heavy tamping method, that is dynamic compaction, also utilizes basically the same principle of vibration, and this is called as vibro displacement compaction. The next topic is called as displacement piles. Here we are driving the piles inside the ground so that the soil goes closer to each other, and this technique is called as displacement piles. So the natural ground and existing fill cannot be compacted in layers. When there is a natural ground or the existing fill is there, it is difficult to compact in different layers. The simple method among the vibro displacement technique is by driving the piles, which is very effective in densifying cohesionless sands up to reasonable depth. Such piles are referred to as displacement or compaction piles. When the piles are driven into loose sand, the ground surface between the piles commonly subside in spite of the displacement of sand by the piles. Because here we are driving the piles inside the ground level and that much amount of soil gets subsides and comes closer to each other. Hammer vibration coupled with the displacement force of the pile is ideal for densifying cohesionless soil, but the method is slow and expensive. These compaction piles can also be used in sandy soils with some cohesion and in existing cohesive fills. This compaction fills also can be used in sandy soils, and also it is used in case of cohesive soils, because since we are driving the compaction piles, it compact the soils, and cohesive soils are also can be compacted to achieve the required densification. Compaction in such soils due to pile driving is not caused by the vibration associated with the driving, but by static pressure, which decreases the size of the void spaces. So in case of cohesive soils, the vibration technique cannot be used because the vibrations will not hold good in case of cohesive soils. And here we require a pressure, static pressure has to be applied so that it decreases the void spaces, soil comes closer to each other. And that's why these compaction piles are used in cohesive soils also. If the soil is located above the water table and the voids are largely filled with air, the compacting effect of pile driving is commonly very satisfactory, because we know that in case of compaction we are trying to remove the air content, we are not going to remove the water content. That's why when the soil is much above the water table, all the oils are filled with only the air, and it is very easy to remove the air by using the compaction piles. The effect of compaction of such soils below the water table decreases with the decreasing permeability of the soil. In clays, displacement piles may cause heaving on the ground surface. The ratio of heave volume to pile volume is about 50% for clays and 30% for silt clays. You can see a schematic diagram which shows the penetration of these piles. When the piles are penetrated, there will be a compaction to the side of the piles, and these places should be backfilled with the good type of soil. This is called as vibro compaction. Displacement pile causes densification of sand for distances as large as 8 diameters away from the piles. The diameter of the densification is 8 diameter from the pile. That much area get densified. Because of lateral displacement of the soil, the horizontal stress acting on the pile increases, resulting in large coefficient of earth pressure at rest value of the stratum being compacted. Timber piles are extensively used for compaction of soils. Earlier days, much timber was available. That's why timber piles were used as a compaction pile. Nowadays, these timber piles are replaced by concrete or sand piles. The next technique which we are going to discuss is called as vibroflotation technique. Vibroflotation is an efficient technique for densifying cohesionless soils with simultaneously vibration and saturation. Vibroflotation is a ground improvement technique used at a considerable depth, that by using a powered electrically or hydraulically probe, it strengthens the soil. The vibroflotation will compact the soil, making it suitable for support design loads. The technique adopted here is vibration as well as saturation. That indicates that there is a vibration probe. Also, there is a water tank which sprays the water, and along with that, it saturates the soil. So, by using both the techniques, vibration and saturation, It densifies the cohesionless soils. This technique was originally adopted in Russia in mid 30s and was applied in 1939 in Germany for improvement of building foundation soils. The technique is used to improve bearing capacity and reduce the possibility of differential settlements that might be allowed for the proposed loads. Sometimes it is also referred to as vibrocompaction, and the ultimate concept is to repack soil particles by joining them together, improving soil's bearing capacity. The compaction of soil can be obtained in soils as deep as 100 meters. The risk of liquefaction in an earthquake prone area is also drastically reduced. It is a specialist deep foundation technique used for ground improvement to considerable depth up to 75 meters. It uses a probe called as vibrofloat, which could be powered electrically or hydraulically to strengthen the soil by deep compaction to make the soil suitable to support proposed imposed loads. It involves the introduction of backfill granular material, either sand or granite, to form stone columns interlocking with the surrounding soil. Treatment is to provide adequate bearing capacity, restrict total and differential settlements to accept magnitudes under the proposed loading, and provide acceptable long term performance of the treated ground. The techniques which we have seen earlier, that is vibrocompaction, vibro replacement method, vibro displacement method, all are the types of vibro flotation methods. The vibro flotation equipment consists of vibrofloat probe, accompanying power supply, water pump, crane, and front end loader. The vibrofloat probe, which is required to drive inside the soil along with the vibration, the accompanying power supply helps in vibrating the probe so that vibration forces can be sent to the soil. The water pumps is required to induce a water jet along with vibrations. A crane is required to drive the vibrator probe inside the ground, and a front end loader is required to replace the hole with a granular soil so that the hole can be filled with the granular soil. Vibrofloat probe consists of a cylindrical penetrator about 400 mm in diameter and about 2 m in length with an eccentric 8 inside the cylindrical developing a horizontal centrifugal force of about 100 kN at 1800 rpm. A typical vibrofloat is formed in two parts, that is the horizontal vibrating unit which connects to the upper part, a follow-up pipe the length of which can be varied depending on the compaction depth. The device provided for water flow from jets at top and bottom at the rate of 226 to 300 liters per minute at a pressure of about 400 to 600 kilopascal. So at this pressure, the water jet is induced so that the soil gets saturated and also get compacted in the lateral directions. The water jets the vibrofloat into the ground as it is lowered with the help of the crane. The front end loader is used to supply the backfill material as in situ soils are densified. The probe is freely suspended from the crane. So these are the parts that are required in case of a vibroflotation technique. Each compaction sequence has four basic steps. That is, vibroflotation techniques can be divided under these following steps. In the first step, vibrofloat is positioned over the spot to be compacted, and its lower jet is then fully opened. Means initially the lower jet of the vibro float is opened so that it creates way to sink the vibro float. And in the second step, water is pumped in faster than it can drain away into the subsoil. This creates a momentary quick condition beneath the jet which permits the vibro float to settle of its own weight and vibrations. Since the vibrating probe is freely suspended from the crane, it requires certain pressure to enter inside the soil, and this pressure can be created by the pressure of the jet, water jet. And by this, the vibro float settles by its own weight and vibrates the surrounding soil. Water is switched from the lower to the top of jets, and the pressure is reduced enough to allow water to be returned to the surface, eliminating any arching of backfill material and facilitating the continuous feed of backfill. Compaction takes place during the point 3 per minute lift, which return the vibro flow to the surface. First, the vibrator is allowed to operate at the bottom of the crater. As the particles density, they assume their most compact form. By raising the vibrator step by step and simultaneously backfilling with sand, the entire depth of the soil is compacted into a hard core. So these are the steps which are required to densify the soil in case of vibrating vibroflotation techniques. The diagram schematically shows the various steps involved in the vibroflotation techniques. You can see here in the first step, as the sand will be there, the water jets with a high pressure and it creates a way for the probe to go inside the soil. And in step 2, as the probe is inside the soil, along with the jet, it exerts pressure on the surrounding soil, and that water comes back through the side spaces. At step 3, we have to put the additional granular soil so that the hole can be filled and it can be densified. In partially saturated sands, water jets at the top of the vibro float can be opened to facilitate liquefaction and densification of the surrounding ground. Liquefaction occurs to a radial distance of 300 to 500 meters from the surface of the vibro float. In clean and free draining soils, backfill consumption is at the rate of 0.5 to 1.5 meter cube per meter of compacted depth. On an average backfill, sand is added will be equal to 10% of the total volume of the soil which is required to be compacted. In one penetration of the vibro float, a cylindrical column of 2.6 to 3 meter in diameter can be compacted. Densification results should be verified by continuous monitoring such as cone penetrating resistance or standard penetration resistance, or discrete monitoring such as nuclear methods. So these methods will tell us what is the rate of densification occurred inside the soil. The successful application of these techniques depends on the following factors. First is the equipment capacity. If the equipment capacity is more, we can densify the soil more deeper inside the ground level up to a depth of 50 to 75 meters. This all depends on the equipment capacity. What type of crane is available to lift the probe, what is the length of the probe available, and what type of pumps are available to induce the jet of water. Second thing is probe spacing and pattern. This probe spacing and pattern has to be decided based on the type of soil which is required to be densified. Also, the site conditions. Third is the type of soil to be compacted. You have to see what type of soil is available to be compacted, whether the soil is granular soil or whether the soil is cohesive. Both type of soil can be compacted by this method. Fourth is the backfill material available in the site. If the backfill material is available nearby, then we can achieve speed in the vibroflotation techniques. Otherwise, we have to wait for the backfill material to bring so that the soil gets densified. Then vibrofloat withdraw procedure, and last one is workmanship. For a given equipment and the excellent workmanship, the end result depends on the other two factors. Depending on the requirement of relative density, the spacing has to be adopted. So before densifying the soil, we need to find out what will be the relative density required, and based on that we can decide the spacings of the vibropropagation technique. The pattern of spacing may be in line or in triangle or a square pattern. Pattern and spacing required for an allowable soil pressure of 300 kN per meter square and square footing are presented in the table below. For a suitability number of 0 to 10, it is excellent, 10 to 20 it's good, 20 to 30 fair, 30 to 50 it is poor, and greater than 50 it is marked as unsuitable for the construction. This technique can be used more effectively for very loose sands below water table that have grain size distribution falling entirely within the zone B. You have to see that if the loose sand is available with the water table, then this technique suitably can be used for such type of soils. Layered clays and presence of fine particles, cementations and organics in the in situ soils pose a variety of difficulties for compacting by this method. If we have layered clays below the ground, or if the fine particles are more, then it will be difficult for this type of method. In situ soils having grain size distribution falling entirely within zone C are very difficult to compact by this technique. In general, the attainment of density and zone of compaction decrease with increasing silt and clay contents. That's why any vibration techniques, if fines are present in the soil, it will be very difficult to densify the soils. The fines and organics apparently amp out vibrations, aggregate the sand particles together, or fill the voids relative movement of particle for densification. Presence of clay layer also reduces the zone of compaction. Zone A includes gravel, dense sand and cemented sands, and in these cases we can achieve a good results by using this technique. The rate of probe penetration is less in these soils, and the effect becomes still less when the water table is at the greater depth. Hence, under these conditions, this technique may prove to be uneconomical. Vibration is controlled through the power consumptions of the vibrator within the probe and by the care with which withdrawal of vibroflow and backfilling the central portion of the hole. Withdrawal rate of 0.3 to 0.6 meter per minute are customary. We cannot suddenly remove the vibrator probe. It should be with a range of 0.3 to 0.6 meter per minute. This is of great concern since the density of the backfill zone must be assured. The next technique is called as sand compaction piles. Here, the compaction will be done along with the replacement of sand. That's why it is called as sand compaction piles. This method consists of driving a hollow steel pipe with a detachable bottom plate down to the desired depth. The driving can be done either by using an impact hammer or a vibrated driver. Sand is introduced in lifts, with each lift compacted concurrently with the withdrawal of the pile. Compressed air is blown down inside the casing to hold the sand in place. The in situ soil is densified while the pipe is being driven down. The compacted sand pile prevents collapsing of the surrounding soil as the pipe is withdrawn. As the pipe is withdrawn in layer by layer, sand is filled and the air is blown so that the sand gets compacted. During the process of compaction, the completed column expands laterally below the pipe tip, forming a casein pipe, and that will exert pressure on the surrounding soil, and the surrounding soil gets compacted by this method. This technique is also referred to as vibro-composer method. The required level of relative density can be achieved by varying the diameter of the compaction piles and the spacing. If required more relative density, then these piles are to be placed very close to each other. That's how we can achieve the required relative density. The following figure shows the step-by-step procedure of the compaction piles. Here it shows how the piles are driven inside the ground, and as the pipes are withdrawing, the sand is filled so that the whole entire hole is filled with the sand, and this will densify the soil. The soil at shallow depth, that is less than 1 to 2 meter, may have less density than that below due to the lesser confinement. Further, the density will decrease radially outwards from the compaction piles. The increase in density may be computed based on the average surface street settlement and the amount of backfill used. This method is economical for moderate depth up to 15 meters. Although this technique is costlier for deeper depth compared to other vibration methods, the treated ground generally has uniform properties. Next technique is called as stone columns. Stone columns, also called as granular piles, are installed mostly using vibration techniques. A cylindrical vertical hole is made and gravel backfill is placed into the hole in increments, and it is compacted by a suitable device which simultaneously displaces the materials radially along the pile. This results in a densely compacted stone column of certain depth and diameter. Vibrofloat is allowed to sink into the ground due to its own weight, assisted by water or air as a flushing medium up to the required depth. The soil surrounding the vibrofloat is disturbed or remolded, and the softened material can be removed by jetting fluid. Water is used as a jetting fluid for fully saturated soils, while compressed air is used for partially saturated soils. By this process, a borehole of larger diameter than the vibrofloat is formed once the vibrofloat is withdrawn. So, formed borehole is backfilled with a gravel of 12 to 75 mm size, or furnace slag is also used to backfill the material. With the repenetration of the vibrofloat, the backfill material is displaced into the sides of the borehole and compacting underneath its tip. While backfilling, vibrofloat is raised and it is lowered. This procedure repeated till the hole is completely filled and compacted, which forms a cylindrical granular pile. The figure clearly indicates how the material is filled once the probe is withdrawn. This sketch shows the step-by-step procedure for preparing the stone columns. Initially, a borehole is created, then the pouring of stone aggregates and sand up to a certain depth, then it is compacted up to the first layer, then second layer of pouring is done, and then again is compacted, and thus how the stone column is formed. Apart from the use of vibrofloat and hollow pipe, different simple techniques are also being used for construction of stone columns. Datye and Nagaraju proposed a method which primarily uses a hammer weighing 15 to 20 kN falling through height of 1 to 1.5 meter for compacting stone aggregates placed in boreholes. The resulting stone column is referred to as rammed stone column, and the technique has been claimed to be economical than vibrator compaction. A simple method using the conventional auger boring equipment and a free fall cast and hammer is also being used. In this method, the borehole is made by spiral auger and the borehole is cleaned manually by using specially made tools. In the cleaned borehole, granular piles are cast using 20 to 30 size stone aggregates and 20 to 25% of sand with uniformity coefficient of 2. The aggregate and sand layers are placed alternatively with layer thickness of 300 to 500 mm and 50 to 100 mm respectively. Each two-layer unit with sand layer at top is compacted with the help of cast and hammer of weighing 1250 kN with a free fall of 750 mm. Due to the impact of hammer, the sand fills the voids of the stone aggregates, followed by the lateral and downward displacement of the charged material till full compaction is achieved. The spacing of stone columns is determined based on the settlement tolerance for the loads to be applied and degree of involvement improvement required. Normally, the stone columns are spaced with a spacing of 1.2 meter to about 3 meter on center of the site. Spacing ranges recommended for sand piles can be adopted for granular piles also. These stone columns results in the following advantages. Stone columns are generally employed in thick deposit of soil of very low shear strength. The undrained shear strength has increased, which is not taken into account at the design stage. Settlements are reduced and stability of embankment and slopes are increased because of stone columns. A good installation technique is important to ensure efficient functioning of the column. The video shows how the stone columns are provided in the soil. Initially, a borehole is sunk inside the soil, which goes to the required desired depth. Then it is filled with the granular soil or granite. As the granular soil goes inside the soil, again it is compacted so that it bulges, and that's how it compacts the side soil and it forms the stone column.